Ladies and gentlemen, the Premier of the Northwest Territories.
That's R.J. Simpson being sworn in as the new Premier of the Northwest Territories on Friday. The Hay River North MLA won after the second round of voting. The territory held its elections in November, but it's just one of two jurisdictions in Canada with a consensus-style government, meaning members are elected as independents and they go on to choose a speaker, a premier rather, a speaker, a cabinet, and they try and make decisions together. Premier Simpson joins me now for more on the priorities of the new government and his message for Ottawa. Congratulations to you, Premier. Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Well, glad you could find some time for us on this Sunday. When you were asked what you'd do to tackle the cost of living, because obviously that's an issue everywhere, you brought up the carbon tax, saying that you plan to lobby the federal government and try to get them to realize, as we played in that clip there, that the North is not the South. What did you mean by that, and what do you plan to tell them?
Well, this isn't new messaging from our government. This has been the message since the time the carbon tax was introduced. You know, here in the Northwest Territories, the cost of living is high. The cost of fuel, of home heating, of power, they've always been high. And so if high costs is what is going to get people to use green energy and green technology, we would have been doing that years ago. But the fact is, we don't have the infrastructure. You know, we don't have the connectivity to the southern power grids. Heat pumps don't work up here in this climate. And so it might be a great solution for southern Canada because, you know, we all agree we need to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Climate change is real. I can tell you that we are being impacted here in the north, more so than the rest of the country, you know, perhaps more so than most places in the world. I can tell you that I've been evacuated from my home for 2 months out of this year. You know, 3 complete community evacuations in 16 months is what I've experienced. So we get the impetus for this, but the fact is it doesn't work for the Northwest Territories.
Well, and I'll come back to that because obviously the wildfires was so devastating for your territory over the course of the summer. But just on the issue of the carbon tax, so yeah, obviously for people who have forgotten, the federal government did a carve out for home heating oil, which does mostly help people in Atlantic Canada. Does it help people in the Northwest Territories? Does anyone heat their home that way there?
Yeah, we have a lot of people who heat their home that way here in the territory. We have a bit of a different regime, so there's steps we have to take advantage of that. And we actually did have a cargo. We didn't pay the home heating a carbon tax up until earlier this year. We did have an exemption for the first few years, but it was removed. So we were quite surprised to see that although our exemption was removed, another one was put in place.
So it does affect you, but it's a little more complicated. Is that the way I should understand it?
Yeah, we have our own a system. We implement our own system. We don't use the federal backstop. And so there's some work that needs to be done.
And the heat pump situation, which again, it could apply to anybody who wants it. The federal government has said it's open to it. But to your point, heat pumps are just not going to last in a cold winter up there.
Yeah, I mean, there's, you know, they talk about after minus 25, it doesn't work so well. Well, you know, we have months and months and months on end of minus 25, minus 30 and colder around the territory. So it's not feasible. Like, I'm sure the technology will get there. Yeah. But at this point, it's not there.
Tell me how people are doing. Obviously everything is more costly in the north, but how are people coping right now when things are just difficult everywhere?
Well, it is, you know, it is getting tough, and it's tough everywhere in Canada. And, you know, the prices in the rest of Canada are getting close to what they actually used to be here. And so the prices are just getting higher and higher here. You know, many of our communities are not connected by all-season roads, so we rely on barging or flying in goods, which is very expensive. And then climate-related issues like low water is causing disruptions to our supply chain. And so, you know, in some places the grocery stores are empty, and other places, you know, the prices are really shocking. I try to take pictures when I'm in some of the small communities and share the prices of things with people because you really wouldn't believe it unless you see it for yourself.
And people, do they get subsidies and additional support, though, because they live up north, and so there are ways that the federal government tries to help?
There are subsidies. I mean, there's Nutrition North, but by no means does it put us on par with Southern Canada whatsoever.
Let me go back to the wildfires. 70% of the population was displaced. You yourself, as you just said there, a record amount of land was burned. What is needed to try and support you going forward? Because we would expect that this is going to continue, these kinds of patterns of weather.
Yeah, and we will need support from the federal government. I mean, there's things that we can do as a territorial government. There's things that communities can do, and there's things that individuals need to do to be prepared for emergencies, fire smarting in your own areas. But the fact is, we need major infrastructure upgrades, and we can't afford those ourselves as a territory. So we need that federal support. In the rest of Canada, the provinces have large population bases and big industries. They can raise tax revenues. We have 45,000 people here in the territory, over 1.3 million square kilometers. So it's a completely different ballgame, and we do need additional support because we can't have a territory where people are out of their homes 2 months out of the year.
Yeah.
We're evacuating 2/3 of our population. It's just not sustainable.
No, and really terrible for the people that live there, obviously, to be in sort of that difficult place time and again. One of the other issues, obviously, it's an issue across the country, but again, different where you are. The Prime Minister was there in October for a housing announcement of 50 new affordable homes under the Rapid Housing Initiative, and the Territory was a partner in that. How do you plan to continue to deal with housing, and do you like what you're seeing from the federal government right now?
Well, housing is a problem across Canada, but like a lot of problems, it's magnified and amplified here in the Northwest Territories. Part of that is the cost of building. Part of that is the lack of journey persons to help build. So, moving forward, what we need to do, what I plan to do, is really work with our Indigenous government partners across the territory and come up with plans and go to Ottawa together as partners and try and bring funds into the territory, because, we can't do it alone as a territorial government. And so we really everyone in the territory needs to come together. That is going to be the cornerstone of this government, is working together in partnership with our Indigenous government partners.
Just to go back to the carbon tax one more time, I don't think you're suggesting in any way that the territory would scrap your own carbon tax. I don't think that's what you're saying. So what do you want from the federal government to help get through these transition points, these pain points right now?
Ideally, a complete exemption for the territory is what we would hope for, because, like I said before, the costs are already high. The higher costs are not the solution up here. So, we're happy to do what we can, move towards renewables where we can, but the fact is that it's just more costs, and I don't think those costs are achieving the goals.
Okay, Premier Simpson, nice to meet you, and I'm sure we'll talk again. Let me know when you're in town, and maybe we can do this in person.
I'd be happy to. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Premier. Nice to meet you.